Hello, people online. I wanted to talk a little bit about how being raised with a narcissistic parent can sometimes lead to like issues with self care and hygiene, and just like caring for yourself in general as you start to recover. So for one, for me, um, my mother is a covert narcissist, and so not malignant, not like the in your face kind of narcissist where it's very obvious that they think they're much better than everyone. This is covert narcissism is so much more difficult to deal with, I think, because if you don't interact with them much or you do it on a very surface level, you won't get that they're narcissistic. You'll just think they're a regular person. It's only when you develop these close relationships with them and you start to see the pattern of like passive aggressive behavior, continually fishing for compliments, feigning insecurity or like making your insecurity everyone else's problem, basically. For like attention and stuff, or always trying to flip the script to be the victim in situations. Like it takes a while to see those things in people. I think it's not something you like notice over time because it's from a pattern of behavior. Because a lot of the things the covert narcissist does on its own are not necessarily narcissistic. Sometimes people are really insecure and they do kind of fish for compliments because they're feeling insecure and they need that boost or whatever, but it's a pattern of this constantly being how they behave that I believe is what classifies it as a personality disorder, rather than just a weird social interaction or something. But anyways, so like my mother did not teach me to like have a hygiene routine in childhood. I mean, she kind of tried. She'd be like, okay, you need to go take a shower. But of course, kids don't want to go do that stuff, especially when they don't understand why you're supposed to do it. So I'd fight her on it. I'd be like, I don't want to take a shower. She didn't want to, instead of taking the time to parent me and teach me why I needed to take a shower, she would just let me not shower or brush my teeth or any of those things. She she didn't want to teach me how to take care of myself so that she had something to degrade me with, I guess. I'm not sure why else. I can only imagine what happens in the mind of a parent like that, because it's just not what I experience. Um, but so even after like separating from, the narcissist in my life, cutting them out, going no contact, uh, I still even after 5 years in therapy, I still find myself struggling with taking care of myself and making time for myself. And I just recently realized that it's because I'm worried that this behavior is narcissistic. And so, and that's like the subconscious belief that's happening because consciously I understand the line between narcissism and self-care, being selfish in a healthy way versus being selfish in an unhealthy way. And sure, that it can be a fine line at times. It is pretty nuanced, but it's I think when children are raised by narcissistic parents, it becomes one of our really deep fears that we will, uh, in some way, shape, or form, become like them because we see them as so devastatingly terrible, especially when you're like the scapegoat child. You see how unfair everything is, you see how illogical it all is, and you just don't want to be anything like them. And so I have in my life found complete horror when I see myself acting or saying something my mother said. Um, but that subconscious belief that any act of self care is gonna turn into narcissism is incorrect, obviously. But just kind of calling that out for myself and making sense of the subconscious beliefs that are illogical is really difficult, and it's really an embarrassing process to get to it because oftentimes I find the conscious mind and the subconscious mind are just not on the same page for me. My conscious mind has logic and reason and like, all that good stuff. And then the subconscious mind is just like completely illogical and emotion based and makes no sense. like, like my irrational fear of going ice skating and falling down and someone skating over my fingers and chopping them all off. Is that likely to happen? No. But does it still keep me from ice skating? Yeah, like a lot. It's stupid. That's like a subconscious irrational fear that I pulled to the surface. But unfortunately with that one, like calling it to the surface didn't really help it become any softer of a fear. Well, I guess a little bit. At least it has helped me to at least, like, if my son really wants to go ice skating and I need to go, then I will go and I will just stay along the side of the rink. But, yeah, anyway. Subconscious thoughts are just stupid sometimes. And so I had this stupid subconscious belief that, like, any amount of caring for myself or putting myself first means that I'm like my mom, a narcissist, willing to hurt others to put myself first. And that's not true, because I know that in my conscious mind that, like, I want to put myself first so that I can help care for others. And really my only motivation for putting myself first these days is because I want to be able to pour from a full cup. I can't pour from an empty cup. So if I want to be of service and use to those around me, I have to make sure I'm in working order. And so, like, I've kind of been going through this with being sick the last couple days. I'm a lot better today, but last night was rough. I coughed up things we don't want to talk about. But I cared for myself. I gave myself medicine. I gave myself essential oils. I did, like, a salt gargle and all the different stuff that I would do for my kid if he woke up in the middle of the night and was as miserable as I am. And it's helped. It wasn't narcissistic. It was useful. And so I just want to remind those people out there that are recovering from narcissistic abuse, like, it's okay to care for yourself. And it's okay if you are holding on to a subconscious belief that it's not okay to care for yourself. All you need to do is call it out. Bring attention to it. Feel a little absurd and maybe embarrassed, but don't live there in the embarrassment, because now that you called it to the surface, now you can work on changing it slowly, and change doesn't happen immediately. You're gonna have to work on consciously pulling out that thought every time it happens so that you can change it. And there's neurology to back this up. I read this great book by Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she talks about, like, reprogramming your brain. And so when we have these negative feedback loops, when we can become aware of them, they start to happen, if we can catch them right before they start looping and redirect them to something positive, we can actually make that the new pathway. So when I get triggered into thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna be a narcissist because I'm giving myself medicine when I'm sick, which is so stupid, right? But this is what's happening in my stupid subconscious. I can stop it and be like, no, you dummy. That's not narcissistic. That's just basic human self-care. And you deserve it. And just because your mom told you didn't deserve it doesn't mean that's what's true, you know? And so often we hold these things we learned in childhood as these, like, unshakable truths without even realizing it. Because the childhood's our foundation for adulthood, right? And so if you're constantly having to pull out part of your foundation, it leaves you feeling crumbly. Right? And so it's hard. It has to happen slowly over time, or you'll go fucking insane, I think. But, you know, we're probably all insane anyways, right? So yeah, if you have struggled with taking care of yourself after narcissistic abuse, maybe take a peek in that subconscious and see what's going on there. The way for me to look at my subconscious is to kind of look for the patterns and then kind of pull my own dialogue out of it. And sometimes I'll let, like, free association words happen as well. I just kind of will say what's coming to my mind. And sometimes it's stupid stuff that doesn't make sense. And other times it's really profound. And I will see that I am harboring a subconscious connection between medicine and mother or something like that, you know? And so the idea of administering medicine or withholding medicine is somehow connected to my mother in my subconscious. And I'll see, like, oh, it's the mother fear of being like her that's giving me that hesitation to really care for myself. And so, I don't know. I just wanted to share that with people in case it helps anyone. I understand that therapy is not accessible for all, and so any little bit I can share of my journey, I feel like, could possibly help someone who is on a journey of their own as well. And obviously, never take what I say as the only thing to listen to. Please go listen to more people's stories. healing's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, you know? Sure, there are maybe, like, steps that people go through that are similar in healing, but it all looks different for everyone. And so, don't get discouraged if my journey looks different from yours. Just keep looking up other people's journeys, and I do think that, you know, even if you don't find one person that specifically has your story and your journey, you can probably Frankenstein together from a bunch of people's stuff, something similar enough to you to make you feel less alone. So yeah, you're not alone out there. It sucks dealing with a narcissist, and healing only happens once you get away from them. And that's my best advice. For me, healing only happened once I got away from the physical vicinity of seeing her or being around her every single day. Because healing just doesn't really happen if you keep getting hurt. I had a therapist once give me this metaphor, and they said, well, if you break your leg, you put it in a cast until it's healed, right? You don't go out and play soccer with the broken leg, or get it put back in place and then, you know, not wear a cast and go run and climb a tree and break it again. Because if you don't take it out of functioning for a bit and give it that space to heal, it will just keep re-breaking and break, maybe even worse, and maybe become, you know, to the point where if it heals now, it's going to be funky and in pain all the time. But, you know, you get the point of the metaphor. They said it much more eloquently than I did. But, you know, when something is constantly being re-injured, it doesn't really heal right. And same with your psyche. So I know that it's not always possible for people to leave their abuser, especially when the narcissist is a parent. But something I held on to from my childhood is that once you're 18, you can leave. And yeah, I chose being homeless after I turned 18 because it was better than being in my mother's house. And sure, it wasn't easy. It was pretty rough being homeless. But it was still better. So it does get better. It can get better, and maybe it doesn't get perfect or great for a really long time, but it can get better. And so you just kind of have to find that stupid little bit inside of you that has hope, that little bit of faith that, like, things don't always have to be that way. It's really hard sometimes holding on to that, but I do believe, you know, you can find it if you look hard enough. So I hope everyone has a good day and holds on to that little flame of hope. If you are stuck in an abusive situation with a parent, you can leave eventually one day. Even if it means going somewhere with no money and nothing to your name. Sometimes that's better. And sometimes it's happier. Because honestly, being homeless, despite the hardship, I was more psychologically happy than I'd ever been in my entire life. I was free. And so, yeah. I wish you all a good day, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.